What we do know is Stonehenge was built in stages from around 3000 to 2400 BC.
A team of geologists declared they have pinpointed exactly where some of Stonehenge's massive rocks came from and how the stones were unearthed.
For centuries, Stonehenge has remained one of humanity's greatest unanswered mysteries. Built thousands of years ago, this massive stone monument has raised the same troubling questions multiple times about how the ancient people moved stones weighing tens of tons across long distances. Today, artificial intelligence is offering a new way to study the site. By analyzing stone alignment, terrain data, and construction patterns, AI is revealing connections that suggest Stonehenge was far more than a simple ritual site. These discoveries are forcing historians to rethink the intelligence, organization, and intentions of its builders. However, the real purpose behind the monument may be far more unsettling than anyone expected. So what did AI uncover that changes everything we thought we knew about Stonehenge? Join us to find out this intriguing mystery. The breakthrough discovery. For thousands of years, Stonehenge has stood quietly on open land, watching people argue about how it came to be. Many ideas were shared, some logical, some wild, but one question never went away. How did people with no machines move stones so heavy and so far? Now, after years of careful study, researchers using modern computer systems and AI-assisted analysis have reached a clear answer, and it changes how we see the past. Scientists examined the stones at a level never done before. Tiny mineral patterns inside the rocks were studied, compared with stone sources across Britain. These patterns act like fingerprints. With the help of advanced computer models that sort huge amounts of data, researchers confirmed that the smaller blue stones did not arrive at Stonehenge by ice or natural movement. Glaciers never reached the area. This means the stones were carried there on purpose by people. That single fact is powerful. Some of the stones came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, more than 200 kilometers away. Each one weighs several tons. There were no metal tools, no wheels, and no written plans. Still, ancient communities organized themselves to move these stones across rivers, forests, and hills. AI did not uncover magic or hidden codes. It helped scientists see patterns clearly, remove old doubts, and confirm what human effort alone achieved. This discovery is not terrifying because of mystery. It is unsettling because it proves how capable early humans really were. They were not lost or simple. They planned long journeys, worked together in large groups, and understood their land deeply. Moving the stones would have taken time, strength, and trust. People had to agree on a shared goal and commit to it for years, maybe even generations. The study also showed that Stonehenge was not built in one moment. It changed over time. Stones were added, removed, and rearranged. This suggests the place stayed important for centuries. Each group that worked on it respected what came before and added their own meaning. The monument was alive in a way, shaped by many hands and many beliefs.
And all of that represented hundreds, if not thousands of hours of labor. And these people had a lot to be getting on with. They had to feed their families, provide shelter. So it just shows how important this task was considered.
AI helped by speeding up comparisons and testing ideas faster than humans alone could. It checked mineral data, movement paths, and geological history. But the heart of the discovery remains human. The stones did not move themselves. People moved them. That truth replaces old theories that blamed nature for what humans were thought unable to do. What makes this moment special is not just the answer, but the respect it gives to the past. For a long time, ancient builders were underestimated. Now, science shows they were skilled planners with strong social bonds. They knew how to organize labor, manage resources, and keep knowledge alive without writing anything down. This finding also reminds us that technology does not erase mystery. It reshapes it. Instead of asking if Stonehenge was built by forces beyond Earth, we are now faced with a deeper question. Why did people choose to do something so hard? Why carry massive stones so far when there were easier options nearby? That question leads us forward. Because once we accept that humans built Stonehenge through effort and unity, the next mystery becomes even more interesting. What was so important that it was worth all that work. What belief, idea, or purpose could bring people together across long distances and many years? As the stones finally give up their secret of how they arrived, they leave behind a new silence filled with curiosity. Understanding the method only opens the door to understanding the meaning. And that is where the story truly deepens, pulling us toward the next part of the journey, where myth fades and human intention takes center stage. Separating scientific evidence from popular myths. Once the question of how the stones arrived begins to fade, another puzzle quietly steps forward. If people truly moved these heavy stones with intention, then Stonehenge was never a random project. It was not built just to impress or to test strength. It had a reason, and that reason mattered deeply to the people who lived at that time. Researchers believe Stonehenge was more than a pile of rocks. Its position was carefully chosen. The layout was planned with the sky in mind. When the sun rises on the longest day of the year, it lines up with the stones in a precise way. When winter comes and days grow short, the setting sun aligns again. This was not luck. It shows that ancient people watched the sky closely and understood patterns of light and time. This matters because time controlled life back then. Seasons decided when to plant food, when to travel, and when to gather together. Stonehenge likely helped people mark important moments in the year. It may have acted like a shared calendar, a place where everyone could agree that a new season had begun. In a world without clocks or written dates, this kind of marker was powerful. But Stonehenge was not only about the sky. Evidence found nearby suggests it was also a place of gathering and ceremony. Human remains were discovered in the area, showing that it held meaning for life and death. People may have traveled long distances to come here, not just to work, but to remember, to honor, and to connect with others. Some scientists believe the monument helped unite different communities. Moving stones from far away required cooperation between groups who may not have lived close to each other. Working together on such a demanding project could have built trust and shared identity. Stonehenge may have been a symbol that said, "We belong to something bigger than ourselves." What makes this idea even stronger is how the site changed over time. New stones were added, others were rearranged. This shows that each generation found value in the place and chose to keep it alive. Stonehenge was not frozen in one meaning. It grew as people grew. It adapted as beliefs changed. It is important to clear away ideas that have no proof. There is no solid evidence that Stonehenge was a machine, a warning system, or a doorway to another world. Those stories are exciting, but science does not support them. What the evidence does support is something quieter and more human. Stonehenge was built for people, by people, to serve shared beliefs and needs. That truth may feel less dramatic at first, but it is far more powerful. It shows that early humans were thinkers. They understood symbols. They created places that brought meaning to their lives. They invested effort into something that could not be eaten or traded simply because it mattered. As we begin to understand why Stonehenge existed, another realization slowly forms. If ancient people could plan such a complex site, read the sky so accurately, and keep traditions alive for centuries, then their knowledge may have been far deeper than we once assumed. This leads us to the next step. If Stonehenge reflects intelligence, planning, and belief, then how exactly did people without modern tools turn ideas into reality? How did they lift, move, and place stones so perfectly, again and again, over generations? To answer that, we must look closely at the quiet brilliance of ancient engineering, where simple tools met extraordinary determination. How mineral fingerprints revealed their true origins. Once belief and purpose are placed at the center, the question naturally shifts from why to how. Knowing that ancient people had meaning and intention is one thing, but understanding how they turned those ideas into stone and structure is where the amazement truly grows. Without engines, cranes, or metal tools, they still found a way to shape one of the most precise monuments in human history. Archaeologists explain that the builders worked with what the land gave them. Trees became rollers, sleds, and levers. Rope was made from plant fibers. Human strength was carefully organized, not wasted. Stones were likely dragged across wooden tracks, slowly and patiently, sometimes moving only a short distance each day. Progress was measured in effort, not speed. What mattered was control and balance. Raising the stones was just as clever. Pits were dug with sloped sides. A stone was dragged upright into the hole. Then the empty space was packed tightly with earth and smaller rocks to lock it in place. To lift horizontal stones onto standing ones, earthen ramps were likely built. The stone was pulled upward bit by bit, then settled carefully on top. Once finished, the ramps were removed, leaving clean, towering forms behind. One detail that often goes unnoticed is the precision. The tops of the stones were shaped to fit together like puzzle pieces. Rounded joints were carved so the horizontal stones would not slide off. This shows planning and testing, not guessing. The builders understood weight, balance, and pressure through experience passed down over time. The work did not happen in silence. It likely involved songs, rhythms, shared meals, and strong leadership. Moving stones together required trust and timing. Everyone had a role. Some pulled, some guided, some prepared the ground ahead. Children may have watched and learned. Elders may have directed based on memory and tradition. This was not just construction. It was a community in motion. What makes this even more striking is how long it all took. Stonehenge was not rushed. It grew slowly across centuries. That means knowledge survived across generations. People remembered how to move stones, how to shape them, and where to place them. Even without writing, they carried skill through teaching and repetition. Modern researchers now use computer simulations to test these methods. By modeling human strength, terrain, and stone weight, they confirm that these techniques were not only possible, but practical. AI helps run thousands of scenarios quickly, showing that simple tools, when used wisely, could achieve what once seemed impossible. There is something humbling in this realization. Progress does not always mean complexity. Sometimes it means patience, cooperation, and a deep understanding of nature. The builders of Stonehenge did not fight the land. They worked with it. As we picture people pulling ropes, steadying stones, and shaping the earth with care, another thought quietly forms. If ancient communities could achieve such precision with limited tools, then what else might they have known? What other skills, stories, or systems were lost to time simply because they were never written down? That question pulls us forward again, because behind the stones and methods lies something even harder to see: the knowledge itself, how it was shared, protected, and remembered. And to uncover that, we must look beyond the monument and into the minds and lives of the people who built it. How ancient builders achieved the impossible. When we begin to think about the people behind the stones, the monument starts to feel less like an object and more like a message passed through time. Stonehenge did not only require strength and tools, it required knowledge, memory, and teaching. Skills like these do not appear by accident. They are learned, practiced, and carefully shared. In a world without writing, information lived inside people. Elders remembered the land, the seasons, and the old ways of doing things. They taught the young by showing them, again and again. Children likely grew up watching adults shape stones, tie ropes, and read the sky. Over time, these lessons became tradition. Knowledge was not stored on paper. It was carried in stories, movements, and habits. This explains how the building process stayed consistent across centuries. Each generation did not start from zero. They inherited understanding. They knew which stones mattered, where they came from, and how to handle them. The monument became a classroom without walls, where learning happened through participation. Food remains found near the site suggest that large groups gathered there. These were not short visits. People stayed, ate together, worked together, and shared moments. This tells researchers that Stonehenge was part of social life. It helped connect families and groups who may have lived far apart. Knowledge spreads naturally when people meet face to face. What is striking is the level of organization involved. Moving stones, feeding workers, planning tasks, and timing construction all required leadership. Someone had to decide when work would happen and how resources would be shared. This does not point to chaos. It points to structure. Early communities may not have had kings as we imagine them, but they had systems of order and respect. Modern technology now helps scientists understand this invisible side of Stonehenge. By studying patterns of movement, settlement, and tool use, researchers can model how information likely flowed between groups. Computer systems test how long skills would take to spread and how stable traditions could remain without writing. These studies suggest that oral knowledge, when tied to ritual and community, can survive surprisingly well. This makes Stonehenge even more impressive. It was not just built by hands, but by minds working together over long periods of time. The stones reflect shared memory. Each placement shows trust that future generations would understand and continue the work. This also challenges a common belief that progress always moves in a straight line. Ancient people were not waiting to be saved by modern inventions. They adapted brilliantly to their environment. They created systems that fit their world. Some of those systems, like strong oral teaching and deep community bonds, are things modern society often struggles to maintain. There is also a quiet emotional weight to this realization. Stonehenge stands today because people cared enough to pass knowledge forward. They believed the site was worth protecting, even when it offered no immediate reward. That choice speaks of values, not survival alone. As researchers learn more, they are careful not to exaggerate. There is no proof of secret codes or lost super technology. What exists instead is something more grounded and more meaningful. Human intelligence is shaped by cooperation. Wisdom grows through patience. Purpose carried by belief. And yet, one mystery still lingers. If so much effort, knowledge, and care went into this place, then Stonehenge must have held a role that went beyond daily life. Something strong enough to last across time. Something that made people return again and again, even when the work was hard. That lingering question opens the final door. Because once we understand the people, their skills, and their shared memory, we are left with one last thing to explore. What did Stonehenge truly represent to them, deep in their hearts, and why does it still speak to us today? Ritual, astronomy, and social unity. As we move closer to the heart of Stonehenge, the question is no longer about stones, skills, or systems. It becomes emotional. What did this place mean to the people who returned to it again and again? Why did it remain important long after the hardest work was done? To understand that, researchers look not only at rocks and tools, but at human behavior, feelings, and belief. Stonehenge appears to have been a place set apart from ordinary life. People did not live there every day. Instead, they traveled to it at special times. This alone tells us something important. When humans choose to leave their homes and gather in one place, especially in large numbers, it is usually for reasons that matter deeply. Birth, death, seasons, hope, fear, and unity often drive such movements. One of the strongest clues comes from how the monument aligns with the sun. The way light moves through the stones during the longest and shortest days of the year would have been dramatic and impossible to ignore. For people who depended on farming and nature, the sun was not just light in the sky, it was life itself. These moments may have marked times of renewal, endings, and new beginnings. Standing together as the light touched the stones could have made people feel connected to something larger than themselves. There is also evidence that Stonehenge was linked to ancestors. Burials found nearby suggest the area was used to honor the dead. This does not mean it was only a grave site. It may have been a place where the living felt close to those who came before them. In many early cultures, ancestors were believed to guide, protect, or watch over the community. Returning to a shared monument could strengthen that bond between past and present. This connection to both sky and ancestors gives Stonehenge a special balance. It tied people to time in two directions: the future, through the seasons and cycles still to come, and the past, through memory and lineage. In a world without written history, places like this helped people remember who they were and where they came from. Another important detail is effort. Stonehenge demanded work far beyond survival needs. No one builds something so difficult just for decoration. The struggle itself may have been part of the meaning. Working together, sacrificing comfort, and committing time may have turned the act of building into a form of devotion. The monument was not only important once finished, it was important while it was being made. This idea helps explain why construction stretched across generations. Each group did not see the project as unfinished. They saw it as ongoing. Continuing the work may have been a way to honor promises made long before they were born. In this sense, Stonehenge became a living responsibility, passed down like a sacred duty. Modern researchers also consider the role of unity. Britain at that time was not one single group. Different communities had their own lands and identities. A shared monument could act as neutral ground, a place where differences softened and cooperation became possible. Stonehenge may have helped people feel part of a wider world beyond their immediate family or village. This does not require kings or empires. It requires shared belief. When people believe something together, it becomes powerful. The stones, then, are not just markers in the ground. They are anchors for identity. They remind people that they belong. What is striking is how quiet this truth is. There is no sign that Stonehenge was meant to frighten or control. It does not scream power. It invites reflection. It stands open to the sky, not hidden or guarded. That openness suggests inclusion rather than domination. The more scientists study the site, the more they move away from dramatic explanations and toward human ones. Not because the mystery is gone, but because the mystery has changed. The unknown is no longer how stones moved, but how meaning was built and maintained without writing, money, or centralized rule. This shift can feel unsettling. We often assume that modern humans are more advanced simply because we have technology. Stonehenge challenges that idea. It shows that deep meaning, cooperation, and long-term vision do not require machines. They require trust, patience, and shared purpose. There is something humbling in realizing that people thousands of years ago created a place that still makes us stop and wonder. They succeeded without knowing their work would survive this long. They built for their present, not for fame. And yet, here we are, still listening. As Stonehenge continues to stand, it asks us a quiet question in return. In our fast world, where things are built quickly and forgotten just as fast, what do we create that lasts? What do we build together that carries meaning beyond ourselves? And as that question settles in, we are led to one final realization. The stones may be silent, but they are not empty. They reflect us, our curiosity, our need for connection, our search for purpose. And in understanding why Stonehenge mattered so much to those who built it, we begin to understand why it still matters now. What Stonehenge says about human intelligence. As the meaning of Stonehenge becomes clearer, one last layer of the mystery quietly remains. It is not about belief or engineering, but about perspective. Why does this ancient place still hold such power over the modern mind? Even with scientific answers in hand, people continue to feel drawn to it. That pull is not accidental. It reveals something about us as much as it reveals something about the past. Today, Stonehenge sits in a world filled with technology, screens, and constant noise. Yet, when people stand before it, many describe a sense of calm or reflection. Researchers believe this reaction comes from its simplicity. The stones are massive, but the design is clean and open. There is no decoration, no writing, no instruction. The monument does not tell visitors what to think. It leaves space for thought. This openness may be why Stonehenge survives in our imagination. It does not belong to one culture, religion, or story. It belongs to human effort. Anyone, from any background, can look at it and recognize struggle, cooperation, and patience. These are experiences we all understand. Modern science, including AI-assisted research, has helped strip away myths without destroying wonder. We now know the stones were placed by people, step by step, through careful planning. That truth does not make Stonehenge smaller, it makes it closer. It reminds us that the distance between ancient humans and us is not as wide as we once believed. There is also something important in what Stonehenge does not show. It does not celebrate individuals. No names are carved. No leader is praised. The focus is collective. This challenges modern ideas of success that often center on personal achievement. Stonehenge suggests that some of the most lasting works come from shared effort, where no single person stands above the rest. This idea may explain why the monument still feels relevant. In a time when people often feel divided, Stonehenge quietly tells a different story. It shows what can happen when communities agree on something meaningful and commit to it together, not for profit, not for display, but for purpose. Scientists are careful to say that not every detail is known. There are gaps that may never be filled. We may never fully understand every ritual, every emotion, or every story connected to the site. But that uncertainty is not failure. It is part of history. Not all knowledge survives, and that loss is itself a reminder of time's power. What matters is that we now understand enough to respect the builders for who they were. They were not guided by unknown forces. They were guided by belief, knowledge, and cooperation. Their world was different, but their motivations feel familiar. Stonehenge also challenges how we think about progress. It shows that intelligence is not only measured by tools or speed. Sometimes it is measured by patience, long-term vision, and the ability to work together without clear personal reward. These qualities are rare in any era. As researchers continue to study the site, new technology may refine details, but the core truth is unlikely to change. Stonehenge is a human achievement. Its power comes from people choosing to build something meaningful and protecting that meaning across time. Standing today, the stones form a bridge between past and present. They remind us that humans have always searched for connection, order, and purpose. The methods change, but the questions remain the same. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all. Stonehenge does not feel ancient because it is distant. It feels ancient because it reflects something constant: the desire to belong, the need to mark time, the hope that what we build will matter after we are gone. As the story comes full circle, the mystery no longer lies in the stones themselves, but in us. How will future generations look back at what we leave behind? Will they see noise or meaning, speed or care? Stonehenge stands as a quiet challenge, asking whether we, too, are building something worth remembering. How the monument shaped communities, knowledge, and daily life. Even after understanding why Stonehenge mattered so much to those who built it, one question quietly lingers. How did the monument influence the world around it, and what did it mean for everyday life? The stones were not just a spectacle, they were part of the rhythm of people's lives, guiding actions, decisions, and social connections in ways that are only now becoming clear. Archaeologists believe the monument may have acted as a central hub, a place where communities converged not just for labor, but for celebration, decision-making, and shared experience. Imagine the scene: hundreds of people traveling from different settlements, carrying tools, food, and supplies. The air would have been filled with anticipation, conversation, and movement. Children watched, learned, and imitated. Elders guided the process. The act of gathering, working, and observing created bonds that extended far beyond the stones themselves. Stonehenge became more than a physical structure. It became a social anchor, a point where trust and cooperation were strengthened across distances and generations. Recent AI-assisted research also suggests that the placement of the stones may have influenced settlement patterns nearby. Communities likely positioned themselves to maintain access to the monument while staying close to resources. The monument may have shaped travel routes, seasonal festivals, and even trade networks. It is remarkable to think that a single construction project, centuries old, could direct human behavior in such an organized way long before written records existed. At the same time, Stonehenge offered a shared language of knowledge and ritual. The careful alignment of the stones with the sun, combined with the burial practices nearby, created a system where natural cycles and human life intersected. People could observe the sunrise, the sunset, and the changing seasons, and use those observations to plan farming, gatherings, and ceremonies. In a sense, the monument acted as both clock and calendar, as well as a cultural guide, subtly shaping how generations lived. What's striking is how little of this is visible without careful study. From a distance, Stonehenge may look like isolated rocks in a field. But with detailed examination, mineral analysis, and AI-powered simulations, we begin to see the invisible threads: social organization, knowledge transfer, and long-term planning. Every stone placement, every alignment, every modification over centuries carries evidence of intention, foresight, and coordination. The monument is both artifact and instruction, a story told in stone about how humans can work together to achieve something lasting. Finally, Stonehenge reminds us that the past is not separate from us. It shows that human ingenuity, collaboration, and vision existed long before technology, social media, or written records. By studying it, we are not only uncovering how the monument was built, but we are learning about the timeless human drive to connect, to leave a mark, and to understand the world around us. The stones speak quietly, but their message is clear. Even in the most ancient times, people shared purpose, knowledge, and ambition that could change the course of generations. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.